Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Thrilled to have this guest on, not only because she's an all-time great at competing, but also as a human being on the planet. 20 Wimbledon championships, 39 Grand Slam titles, a hero in my household growing up, and now an author of All In, an autobiography, which is available now wherever books are sold. Billie Jean King here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Billie Jean?
I'm excellent. How are you, Rich?
I am better for talking to you. So my first question here is, anytime I hear an all-time great receive an honor that I thought they'd already received, like, say, going in the Hall of Fame, I'm like, wait, they're not in yet? Is this your first autobiography? Have you not done this before? Is this an update? Where did this come from?
The last book was, and I didn't really get involved with 80. I was not involved in that one. The last one I was involved with a little bit was Kim Chapin back in 1974. Wow. So I haven't really done a proper book since 74 when I was in my 20s, and I'm 78 this year. So this is it, man. It took over 4 years to do it. Got lots of help from a lot of people, and had a full-time research person, had so many people involved trying to find out the facts, because as you know, truth is never the same in memory. So it was helpful with the research of getting newspaper clippings or videotapes or things just to remind me of getting the dates right even. You know, it's amazing how your mind plays little tricks on it. So it was a labor of love. I wanted to get it right. I think it's a great research book for people that need to do research on me anyway. I mean, I still get a lot of requests from every age group, but particularly young people, actually, very young. We're talking like 10 to 15, to do interviews and to do reports. And this book will be very helpful to anybody who wants to do proper research.
So then what part of
I think that'll help. Because even in the book, there's an appendix with all my matches and scores and all kinds of facts in there. But I really do dig deep here and talk about very important and sometimes very painful subjects, my sexuality, my eating disorder, my journey, just like everyone's journey. Everyone has difficulties. And I hope this book helps anybody who's challenged emotionally and just, if you have an eating disorder, hopefully this will help. If you aren't sure of your sexuality, if you don't, as far as your gender identification or anything, I hope this will help people along the way in their journey.
So which part of your journey in having your memory refreshed based on the research and you going back, were you even surprised by just having that memory jogged, Billie Jean?
Well, the one thing that came to mind is how busy I was as far as trying to play tennis and lead at the same time, own tournaments, being a business person. Quite frankly, I don't know how I did it. Looking back, God did give me extra energy, and I think that's the reason I was able to do it. And also, I really wanted things to change. I had such a will to want things to change, and I got very lucky because there was a few players around me, or I'm around them, to want to change things. The original 9 in 1970 is a huge story. It's in here. There was 9 of us willing to give up our careers for the future generations. And there were 3 things that we really cared about, and that was that any girl born in the world, if she was good enough, would have a place to compete. Number 2, that she'd be appreciated for her accomplishments, not only her looks, like everything. And when I played against Bobby Riggs, for instance, when I was coming out, when they were in the Egyptian litter, they were bringing me out, 90 million people were watching. Howard Cosell only talked about my looks. He never talked once about my accomplishments. So that was the number 2. And then number 3 was to be able to make a living playing tennis, because as amateurs before 1968, we made $14 a day. We never wanted that to happen again for women. And we'd been getting shut out a lot by the guys. I wanted us to be together. They did not want us, so that was a tough time. It was really a tough time. And then because of that moment where the original nine signed a $1 contract with Gladys Hellman, and she went out and got sponsorship, we got people to run tournaments for us. But every time a young person or a player today gets a check, a woman player, you can go right back to that moment when we did that, because that's the reason they're making so much money. So it's still relevant today, because history is relevant today and many times. And I think it's really important for young people to know a lot about history, because it does help them to shape the future. I know it helped me when I was young and trying to help shape the future.
Billie Jean King, All in an autobiography, where all books are sold, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So now the conversation around somebody like Naomi Osaka is about mental health and mental awareness. She just had an interview, a press conference via Zoom, in which she stepped away because, as her agent described it, the line of questioning was disturbing. And so now that's the conversation that's being had right now. I'd love to give you the floor and what you think about the conversation surrounding Osaka. Obviously, what occurred with Simone Biles during the Olympics plays into that. I'd love to give you the floor, Billie Jean King, and tell us what you think about this subject matter.
I have total empathy for them. I want them to be okay. I want them to take care of themselves. I think we need to do a better job when they're young as to what it means to be a high-profile or a professional athlete, like an Olympian or a pro tennis player, because part of being a pro and part of why we make all this money is because we have spent time with the media. And the media are very important because they tell our story. Now, I realize in the old days that's all we had, and thank God the traditional media have stepped up for women's tennis, or we wouldn't have what we have today. But today with social media, we have both. But part of being a professional athlete, I think, is talking to the media. And the most important thing we can do is not take things personally. I can tell you what I used to think about when I did media conferences. Every time I'd walk in, basically it was all men, and then I'd ask them questions before we'd start. Sometimes what does feminist mean to you? We go around, we started laughing. We had a great time. But the important thing is I would look at each person that this guy or woman later is trying to make a living just like we are. And so I'm always big on trying to look at the other person and what they're dealing with. And we're kind of in this together because we help each other. So I kind of look at us as a team, even though sometimes they're going to be horrible to us and the way they ask questions. And I can tell you the other guys or other people who are doing media, when a guy asks the question inappropriately, they are not happy with them as one of their peers. So I don't know if people think about that, but I know that they get upset sometimes with their peers for saying, "How could you ask such a stupid question? You know, we're trying to get answers here. We're not going to get any answers this way," which is kind of funny to watch. And then I just think part of being a great athlete and part of being the reason we get all this money is because we've had the media all these years. They promoted us, and so people can know us, because that's the way people like us. It's not we hit a good forehand or a backhand. It's that you like the player. You don't like the player. They're great this way. You don't like this part about them. But how does that happen? It's through exposure. It's through people talking about us. And so I think we've got to find a way. I'm not saying that the press conferences can't maybe be changed a little. I don't know. I think it's good to always keep improving things. But I think we also need to do a much better job when the athletes are young, that we have a proper rookie schools and get them ready for what it really means to be a top athlete. And part of that deal, is you've got to talk to people. If you don't want to, fine, don't. But I don't think that helps the sport. I'm very big on talking to people, because I know with us trying to change tennis, trying to change women's sports, if we hadn't had the media, we wouldn't have what we have today.
Well, and the issue with social media, Billie Jean King, is it is a two-way street. That, yes, you can use it as a platform to get your story out, right? You can do that. And
Sure,
the issue is the other way around. And the stuff that Osaka and or Biles must see in the palm of their hand immediately, responses to if they look at it. I would counsel them not to, because that might actually help, or help's the wrong word. That might actually lead to the potential conflating of what somebody is saying by hitting send on the phone and saying that might be the same intention of a member of the traditional media asking a question. And I'm just wondering, like, what do you I'll go ahead. I guess what
No. I just totally agree with you.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. When I was 15, my dad, because I was yanking around about some, the way they wrote about me in the paper in Long Beach, California, where I was born and raised, and I just lost a match, and why didn't they put me on the front page when I win? I've won tournament. And I'm going on and on. He says, just stop. He said, when did this happen? I said, yesterday. He says, exactly, yesterday. He said, stop. He says, I don't want you to read any clippings. I don't want you to look at any media. I don't want you to look at anything anymore. And that was the greatest, best thing he could have ever done for me. And that's basically what you're saying. Don't read it. Don't look at it. Because you're always going to get people who love to hear themselves talk. You're always going to get people who are negative. They thrive on social media. And that's where you got to ignore them. You just have to ignore them. I just don't think it's important. I just don't think you should be looking at yourself that much. I don't think, in the big scheme of life, seriously, we're athletes. But I do think we have a platform and a responsibility to help make this world a better place. So I feel for the athletes because I know some really suffer. So I think got to figure this out. But I agree with you. Do not look at the negative feedback from social media. Just ignore that. They're bullies, a lot of people.
No doubt.
They thrive on it. That's the downside. The good side is, though, you can get your word out. You have a platform. So, but there's always going to be the good and the bad part of that. So you've got to be selective.
I'm just wondering what the notifications at Billie Jean King would have looked like after you kicked Bobby Riggs's ass, Billie Jean.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine?
No.
Can you imagine how many people I'd have? It would have been great. I would have loved it. I'd love to be a young athlete today. Are you kidding?
Really?
You have a platform. You make money. You can do good with that money. You can give it back. You can help underserved people. Oh my gosh! I just think of the opportunities and the leadership opportunities they have because they have this platform, and just think of all the different ways athletes can help make the world a better place, and we can do that. That's our job. I think that's part of being blessed. Being a professional athlete or one of the top Olympic athletes. I mean, I watched the Olympics. It was so thrilling.
So in I guess wrapping up our conversation, Billie Jean King, what's next? What do you think should be next for what you started when you from the point of view? Obviously, you've got your Billie Jean King initiative, but in terms of the cause for the female athlete, what do you think is next here in 2021?
Well, Ilana and my partner are very involved. We really want to. We want soccer to get more. We want women's hockey, ice hockey, to have a league eventually with the top players. They do have a league that's very good, but we need the top players. That they're the ones that drive everything. We are so young. Women's sports is so late in the marketplace. We're in our infancy, so we have a long way to go. We also do an initiative. We're very big, on DE&I and, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We help companies do that. We try to make money and give it back pretty quickly sometimes, like with the frontline workers, particularly women of color. I'm involved in investing in the First Women's Bank in Chicago, Fidelity and Bank of America are involved in that too. So we're just going to start that. I'm very big on girls following the money, just like boys are taught. Make a lot of money and then give it out to people who need it or underserved, and create opportunities and training. But as far as women's tennis and men's tennis, I would like to see us together more. I know the WTA and the ATP are working together, and then you have a third group who started with Djokovic. We've got to figure out how to get together. Tennis has immense opportunities. We don't have enough social media content, so we need to really punch that up. We can make a lot more money, have better revenue streams. So tennis, as far as women's tennis, we are definitely the leader in women's sports without any question. But I just want all women's sports to do well, because women's sports, 94% of them in C-suites and businesses identify with being athletes. it helps us to negotiate. It helps us to be resilient. All the things it teaches boys, it teaches girls. So I really want girls and boys to be in sports. You don't have to be the best, but you learn about business. You learn how to navigate the world that we live in when you learn all these things through sports. And also relationships. You build up relationships, and relationships are everything.
Before I let you go, Billie Jean King, I got to just revisit one thing you said in the conversation about Howard Cosell during your match with Bobby Riggs was commenting only on your looks. Did you ever have an opportunity to address that subject with Howard afterwards?
No, I did. Well, I never saw it. I didn't see the. I didn't actually see the match. No, I didn't watch the match until 25 or 30 years later when I had to. Actually, I had to watch the match for the book and comment on the match, and I could not believe it when I started to watch. I thought, okay, great, Howard Cosell, the best announcer. He was like number one and big influencer, and he was tight with Ali. They helped each other become famous more than ever. And I used to be very envious of them in a way that I didn't have a broadcaster that was helping my profile, increase. I thought, God, we're just always on the outside looking in. But no, I didn't. When I saw it, I could not believe it, that Howard went on and on about my looks. Oh, you take your glasses off, do this. She could be in Hollywood. And I'm like waiting for and she won this or that, or she was in the Hall of Fame. And then when Bobby came out right after me, and all they talked about was his accomplishment. And it was I just could not believe that's what was said in 1973 with the match. And of course, it was just after Title IX was passed in 72. So I was like, that just shows you how the times were. It's indicative of the culture at the time.
Wow. And that was one of your observations, having never seen it, watched it back just for your
I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. I didn't think he would do that. I thought he'd at least say, well, she won a Wimbledon or two, or she won the U.S. Open, or something, And I like Howard. I got along well with him.
Well, look, Billie Jean King, I'm no Howard Cosell, but you always have a place here with anything that I do. I don't know if I'm kind of going to get a little emotional telling you this, because my mother reveres you to this day. She's 83. She doesn't like me saying her age, but you mentioned yours. But she reveres you and revered you, and growing up as I did, hearing your name. She loves telling the story about me as a kid, having a friend down the street named Karen, and she and I would play, and we would fight about who got to be you instead of Bobby Riggs. And
that's so adorable.
That's a fact. That's how I grew up. So you always have a place.
Wow.
It's how you always have a place here, Billie Jean King, whenever you want, with whatever you're doing. Please
I
call
appreciate
back.
that, Rich. And say hi to your mom. What's her name?
Eveline Eisen. That's her name.
Eveline, say hi to her.
I will.
Tell her, keep going for it.
She sure is, still is. Billie Jean King, congrats on the book. Can't wait for everybody to get it, and let's keep talking down the line.
All right. Thanks a lot, Rich. I really appreciate it.
You bet. All in an autobiography, the author, Billie Jean King. You can follow her at Billie Jean King on Twitter and Instagram, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.